Welcome all my friends, welcome all again to another video, and we're talking about Cake, the alt-rock band from Sacramento, California, and one of the most unique bands to grace the alt-rock radio stations that existed and exist in some capacity still. And, you know, you think of those bands like Faith No More and Primus and Cake, that, you know, there's no other bands that sounded quite like these bands. And Cake had this style and this funk doubled with, you know, married with mariachi music, and there was even some hip-hop in there and country, and you had John McCrea, his deadpan vocals and sarcasm, but it doesn't seem like he's not a passionate guy, because he could write some love songs in there and some, you know, social commentary, and it's like, oh yeah, it's really fun music and everything, and then you go into the lyrics and, you know, there's something there, like there's a lot to unpack. So yeah, I've always really liked Cake, and basically what had me finally listen to their discography, because I'd always known the first 4 or 5 records, but what had me visit them all again and in order is Darcy Ska, who does his own YouTube videos, and him and I have, you know, been talking a lot in that. Him and I wanted to do this series that is, you know, greatest hits for bands that never had one. What would it look like? What would it be? And yeah, that kind of forced me into listening to them again, because I've always liked them. I've seen them live once, but I gotta say, I never really decided to listen to them more than, you know, a track here, a track there, other than when I saw them live. Then I probably listened to at least the first 4 or 5 records again. But, you know, I had a roommate that played them ad nauseum, and I thought I was sick of them. I didn't want to ever hear Frank Sinatra again or I Will Survive. And then, you know, when I started listening, I'm like, gee, yeah, like these guys are incredible. Like, they're one of the best bands of the time. So yeah, we're counting down. We got 6 studio sets and 1 B-sides collection. I'm not hitting the live one. So yeah, Cake as it stands, and they had a lot more personnel changes that I ever knew, because, like, I don't think they're a dramatic band or anything, but any drama that might have happened has, you know, it's not like they're a public band, right? So as it stands, they're John McCrea on singing and lyrics, Vince Fiore on trumpet. Man, I mean, that's the sound right there. Zan McCurdy, I really hope I'm saying his first name right, on guitar, Daniel McCullum on bass, the funky bass of Cake, and Todd Roper on drums. Though they've had tons of different personnel changes. They had Greg Brown play guitar in the 90s, 91 through 97. Frank French was in the group. Peter McNeil, Gabe Nelson, just to name a few. There's a lot more. There's people that were a member for like a year or two. So number 7 is going to be the B-Sides collection, which has some, you know, fun little workouts there, and some decent tracks that, for the most part, I'm with the band, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I could see why you didn't really pick that one or whatever. But War Pigs is there. And you also get a studio one to open it up, and then later on a live take on it. And a live take on It's Coming Down, which is incredible, and a fast short skirt long jacket. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's so uneven, and War Pigs is the big takeaway, I would say. Speaking of uneven, this one I never heard leading up to Darcy and I's video, and that's Showroom of Compassion. And, you know, I was expecting to really like this one, because I really liked Pressure Chief. I liked him more than a lot of people. I read a lot of middling reviews, and a lot of people that said it wasn't as good as Comfort Eagle, and maybe it isn't, but for me, they're kind of on the level, and it's close. I went back and forth on that. Showroom of Compassion, I mean, I remember listening to it one time, like right before we were seeing them live, and it was at a festival, so it was probably like 2 or 3 days before we finally saw Cake, who headlined that day. And, you know, great live band anyway. everyone knows that about Cake, I think. But, I checked out Showroom of Compassion then. It obviously didn't really have that much of an effect, but the set list was quite heavy on it. Like, I feel like they were playing half Showroom songs. So, I mean, I'd love to see Cake again, but and none of it's bad. It's just it doesn't really fulfill that promise. It's not a great swan song. Some bands go out really big, and some bands go out like these guys, The Clash, and it kind of all peters out. But other bands, like let's say David Bowie, he's not a band, but he's as big of an entity. He goes out with one of his best works of all time, and what a statement, and Leonard Cohen and all that. But yeah, these guys, it's not a whimper like the Clash with Cut the Crap, but yeah, I mean, there's just not any big highlights really, and I don't know, it's kind of a non-event, but it's not bad. It's decent music. It's good background. None of the lyrics are shoddy or anything. It's just I don't find any of the lyrics quite as thought-provoking as Frank Sinatra from Fashion Nugget, or Comfort Eagle, some of that material, all of that material, Prolonging the Magic. Wow, like the lyrics were kind of knocking me out a little bit, because they're so sarcastic, but they're so clever. Like there's just something about that. Anyway, it's such a unique blend. But that's 6, Showroom of Compassion. 5 is Motorcade of Generosity, which I remember really liking back in the day, 10 plus years ago, and maybe even thinking was one of the best Cake albums. It's kind of, I mean, the formula's there. It's not honed in. Like, it's not as tight yet. But they definitely know what they're doing. They definitely already carved out that unique sound. It really works on Jolene, which is my highlight from the record. Rock and Roll Lifestyle, it was unique enough to get them to 31 on the US alt charts. So that was their first charting song. And, Ruby Sees All is really good. And nothing's bad on it. The opening track's pretty good, kind of funny, like tightening up your butt and all that kind of stuff. But it's not the leaps and bounds from this one to Fashion Nugget. The next 3 or 4 albums, it's just major. And yeah, I mean, it's a fun one to put on every once in a while, but it's not what I would call a solid album or a solid artistic statement. It's just kind of, it's an established sound, but they could work a little harder to get there, and they did. I mean, it's still a really good debut. I'm not really knocking it. I knocked Showroom a little bit, but they're both decent albums for sure. Number 4 is going to be Pressure Chief, and man, I really like this one. I almost put it in 3, which would probably anger a lot of people, which unfortunately personal ranking videos do. Like, I'm not saying which is the most popular, I'm saying which I enjoy the most. And I love Pressure Chief. It's a lot of fun. Maybe a lot of the songwriting isn't quite on par with Comfort Eagle, but I think there's tons of clever songs here. I think the band should be really proud of the record. Yeah, it was just a really fun album. I remember when Wheels was getting some play, and No Phone, and I don't remember really gravitating towards them, so I never checked this out back in the day. I think the only time I listened to it leading up to these last couple of weeks was, again, when I went to go see the band live, which I think was 2012 or 13 or something. Showroom was still new-ish, but, the band was kind of winding down, and we didn't know it. I thought, maybe in another 5 years we'll get a Cake album, but it never happened. But Pressure Chief was just a welcome surprise. There's a lot of really fun songs on it. My favorite song is Carbon Monoxide, and that, on the record, that's probably one of my favorite Cake songs. It's just so much fun, and the lyrics are so good. The Guitar Man's a lot of fun. Wheels was way better. I remember it being repetitious and almost annoying, but I guess when it came out, 05, 06, I was getting into other music. I was kind of moving on from Cake, seeing what else was out there, getting into prog and neo-psychedelia and punk and, just looking at all these other things and coming back to favorite bands from back in the days. it's very rewarding, and I found Pressure Chief very rewarding. And I mean, it's good because a lot of people don't seem to like it as much, or they act like it's a huge step down from Comfort Eagle. But I'm sure tomorrow I'll almost be like, I think Pressure Chief's number 3, not Comfort Eagle. Those are the only ones in this ranking that I would change back and forth. So anyway, Comfort Eagle's number 3, and less controversial to put it in number 3. Everyone likes Comfort Eagle because it's got Short Skirt Long Jacket on it. You know, that funky bass line, those kind of sly, snarky but clever lyrics, and I just love the she's changing her name from Kitty to Karen. It's like, oh, you might not want to do that now. Bad move. Kitty's way better. It's too bad about that, actually. Yeah, it's a clever song, memorable music video. Love Comfort Eagle. Love the title track. For 15 years, when someone would say Cake, or my friends would say we like the band Cake, that's the song that would go into my head, Comfort Eagle. And yeah, that should have been a single. It should have been a hit, but Love You Madly is one of their best songs ever. Opera Singer's great. The only song I don't really like all that much is Meanwhile Rick James. I would call that or the instrumental as the weakest, but the instrumental just has such good bass work that it's like, okay, no, I can see why that was put on the record. That's a good song. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of Meanwhile Rick James, but it's grown on me a little bit. I don't really like the it's not just the music, it's the subject matter too. It just doesn't work as well. It's not bad, but I would see that one on the B-sides collection and maybe them put something else, and especially as track 2. Anyway, other than that, great album. And if you like that song, I'll admit it's decent. I started to come around on it, but it's just, if I was making my dream set list or my top 15 Cake songs, that would go nowhere near it. Number 2 is going to be Fashion Nugget, which is probably a lot of people's favorite and sold the most copies. It's got I Will Survive on it, which is one of the best covers ever and so much fun. I just love how he sings like almost the whole song, but like there's still a lot of emotion there. How does he do that deadpan thing? Like, when it comes to actors, I'd say like Ben Stein or something. But that's literally no emotion. Whereas John does it deadpan, but you can still hear some emotion coming. And I love when he says, I should have changed my fucking lock. It's like he changes the lyrics a little bit. The Distance, their biggest hit ever. Double platinum song, the one all the punters cry out for that one when they go see Cake live, and which annoyed me so much during the Cake live performance, because literally the whole song, like they started playing in No Phone, and someone's like, Going the Distance, which is almost the name of the song, and then they'd start playing, my friends and I would get really excited because they started playing something off Prolonging the Magic, and then someone's going the distance, and it's like, they'll get there, like they're gonna play that song, man. But yeah, a lot of people roll into the Cake venue to go see them live, and that's the only one they know. So Fashion Nugget, I mean, some more highlights, Frank Sinatra, which I already mentioned. That's the opening song, and yeah, as soon as the keyboards start, and I mean, lyrically, it might be their best song. I would probably put it in my top 10 or 15 Cake songs. Like, it's a really good song. That's another one I thought I'd be sick of, because I had a roommate that used to play this album on loop while he was playing video games, and I never had a problem with it, and I really liked a lot of the songs myself. It was always a consistent album, but I thought, well, I never have to listen to that album again. And then listening to it again for the project with Darcy, I mean, man, I was enjoying this album so much, to the point that I was saying, maybe Cake are one of my favorite bands. Like, I know I have 100 of them, but yeah, they're just that good at what they do. Like, they carved out an aesthetic and they just rocked it. Yeah, there's not a bad song on the record. Nugget is one of the most fun songs ever. especially the backing vocals. So much fun. And then number one, of course, Process of Elimination, Prolonging the Magic, and probably the first Cake song I ever heard, though I might have heard some unknowingly. I probably heard The Distance unknowingly, but the one I remember, listening to on the radio in my friend's dad's workshop. He was working on a 8-year project of building a boat, and he always had the radio on, and I remember hearing Never There, and it was just so unique. Something hit me, and I should have been a fan then and there, but I was almost like a little kid. Like I probably didn't have enough money to go out buy a CD. Like I was very young, and it was about the time I was getting into music, but I didn't go out and buy a Cake record. I was too busy listening to Sugar Ray and Our Lady Peace, and Our Lady Peace, great, but investigate Cake. That's what I should have told myself. Never There was a huge single. It's easy to forget now, but it was all over alt rock radio. It made it up to number 1 on alt rock. It was their only number 1, which is crazy. Let me check that. The Distance went to number 4. I almost doubted myself. And Short Skirt only made it up to number 7, which kind of blew my mind. But yeah, Never There was a number 1 song. Let Me Go is amazing. You Turn the Screws. I think a lot of the band's best songs are on here. Mexico. My dream set list of Cake would just be half Prolonging the Magic songs. I just think this is everything they built up to doing. And they didn't really fall off, but it's just everything building up from the debut to really reeling it in, Fashion Nugget, just perfecting it on that one. And then Prolonging the Magic, it's like everything that was good, here's more of it. Like, what a great album. And then Comfort Eagle, that it's not like it's a big dip in quality. Like, that's a good record. So please tell me your favorite Cake records in order. Favorite Cake songs, memories of Cake. Maybe you had a piece of cake while you were listening to them. But probably not. I wouldn't recommend it because I would get so into the music that I would probably just choke on the cake, and that wouldn't be very good for anyone. But yeah, Cake, what a great discography. It's a little compact discography, and they never officially broke up, but they just have seemed to be on a hiatus for a long time. And I don't know if it has to do with the many personnel changes that have gone on over the years. But yeah, very interesting to read up on them a bit more after years of, I'm disgusted to say, but kind of taking them for granted. Don't take Cake for granted, kids. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Peace and love, and we'll catch you in another video. Peace out.